All right, now let me show you how to make our cards look like this. So if we do have a product of a given type in our shopping cart, we're going to display the quantity and buttons to change the quantity. Otherwise, we're going to display add to cart button. Also note that here I've changed the color of our buttons because previously we had so many blue or primary buttons on this page and that was distracting. So let me show you how to implement something like this. So back in our product cart component, in the footer, I want to display this button add to cart only if the quantity is 0. So very simple. ng if we get the quantity and compare it with 0. Now, otherwise, we want to display a template. Let's call that update quantity. Now here, I want to put this div inside that template. So ng template, we give it that ID, that is update quantity. Now here I want to have a row with 3 columns. So the first one, I want it to be column of size 2. This is where we add a button to decrease the quantity. So button with 2 classes, btn and btn secondary to make it look gray. Also, I want to apply btn-block to make sure this button fills the entire column. Okay, so the label for this button is minus. Then we're going to have another column. I didn't set the size here because I want this column to stretch and take all the available space. Now inside this column, we're going to render the quantity. So this quantity we have here, I'm going to move it right here. And we don't need this div anymore. And the last column. Here I'm going to get our first column, copy, and paste it here. And then change the label of this button to plus. Now, before we preview this in the browser, let's also change the class of add to cart button from primary to secondary to make sure this is gray as well. Now, back in the browser. All right, it looks a little bit ugly, so let me explain why. Let's inspect this element. So here's our row. Now look at the selected area. You can see the size of this row is bigger than the size of our card. This is because by default, Bootstrap adds negative margins to these rows. So here on the right side, look at the definition of the row class. You can see we have 2 negative margins here, margin right and margin left. And this is required from Bootstrap point of view to properly align elements on the screen. But in this particular case, we don't want that negative margin because this row ends up being bigger than our card. So I'm going to apply another class here, no-gutters. And this will remove the negative margin. Now look at the result. Our button looks a little bit bigger. And if you hover this element, you can see the size of the row is exactly the size of our card. So this looks better. So we need to apply the no-gutters class on our row. And also, we're going to put this text in the center of the column. So back in our template, here is our row. I'm going to apply no gutters. And for our text, I'm going to apply text center. This will make our text appear in the center of the column. And here I want to add another label, in cart. Now let's preview one more time. All right, it looks better. So next we're going to implement these change quantity buttons.